Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is Chris Swope. He's going to tell a story about making guitars for Ron Wood and the Rolling Stones.
I moved to New York in 1995, and I got a job at a boutique guitar builder's shop in Midtown, Broadway, right around the corner from 48th Street. So half that shop was building, and he was a Fender style build and really made his mark with Roger Sadowski with basses, kind of like hot rodded jazz basses before anybody was doing anything like that. But it was 50% repair also. And we worked on the best stuff was owned by the best people. And so all the Stones guitars were in there. I played, I don't want to say you name it, but, in my 20s, I'm there and into my 30s. And, I got to play Macabre. I got to play the Sunburst one, Sunny, the Sunburst Telly, a couple of, TV Yellow specials or juniors, one for sure that was Keith's, the Black 355. I've got a picture of me young with Ronnie Wood's J200 by his Anvil case. One of the guys I worked with, he left before me, and he was sort of a vice president type. I mean, I learned a lot from him. He went to work for a flat top builder for a while, but then he ended up becoming Daryl Jones' bass tech when maybe shortly after Daryl joined the Stones. And so he was all these years later, when I started my own thing, he was my foot in the door for sure. If you look at the Rolling Stones tours of the last 15 plus years, when they actually go on tour, they'll go on tour. It'll seem like short because it might be like 13 dates spread with 5 days between every gig, and they hop on a jet and go back home. But they'll do a leg, and then they'll take a few months off, and then they'll do another leg, and they'll take a few months off. And those tours might go for 2 years. It's not uncommon, maybe longer. But then when they get off, it might be 5 years. And those techs, they're not on retainers, right? And so between some of those tours, Ronnie's tech, who's also mixed tech, he took another gig. I think he took a gig with Brad Paisley, a great gig, probably more steady. It probably puts him on a retainer. But this guy I know, Ken Fallon, he then became Ronnie's tech and mixed tech right around the time that I'm finally hanging my own shingle. And so he was the foot in the door with that. It took years. I'm serious. I mean, it took maybe 4 years and a lot of guitars and a lot of hoping. It's no one's job to pitch guitars to the Rolling Stones, right? It's a protocol. And I had to go through different levels before it could ever be put into a room that Ronnie was in. And even then, no one was supposed to pitch it to him. He was supposed to discover it. And so it was a very, very long process. I started out with my first model, which had very interesting pickups in it. I think very unique, but the switching was maybe more complicated than you want to hand somebody who's, he just took off, the Faces guitar that he's known his whole life, and he's handed something else for the next song, and it's got to be simple, And so when I came out with that went to the tech, and he loved it. They weren't on tour at the time, and he thought, I need to talk to Pierre about this, who's Keith's tech and the overall stage manager. But I think this is something, that might appeal to him, especially sonically, because it really cut through. They're humbuckers, and but they've got a vitality, sort of a single coil spirit, and they really sit in the mix without having to be bumped up louder necessarily. They're really present. And, have you ever seen the Stones live? So Ronnie's still the new guy. Keith is louder in the mix, period. And so to have something that cuts through the mix and is able to be heard, he thought would be really appealing to him. But I'd come out with a couple other models, and one of them had a much simpler control layout. And he's like, look, the next one, take those pickups, but put it in this body where it's just a 3-way switch and a volume and a tone. And just keep it simple, so that when he puts it on, it'll be intuitive. They were starting up a European tour, so then it looked like maybe I was going to get to send something. But they were like doing a puddle jumper thing. There's not enough room for gear. And Pierre was like, well, if you just want to give it to Ronnie, you can give it to him. We can just take it and give it to him. And I had read Ronnie's autobiography, right? And there's a thing in there where he says something to the effect of, people like to give me guitars, and so I accept them. And I didn't want that. I couldn't. I needed the money. I needed him to buy it or whatever. So eventually, they're going to start this tour called Zip Code, and they're going to be rehearsing in LA. And he's like, okay, I want that body shape, those pickups. We're going to be there in, at this point, maybe a month, because those tech guys, they don't have much notice. Nobody knows. It's like tight-lipped, and then all of a sudden, we're going on tour. So, I've got a couple of bodies that have been painted. I'm like, what color? We're like, doesn't matter what color. Okay, and so I choose a ice blue metallic. It's a beautiful silvery blue, and buff it out, get things going, build the guitar. Comes a day to ship it. I'm cleaning everything up. So no fingerprints or whatever. And as I'm closing the case, I catch in the light like these buffing swirls in the clear coat. I'm a perfectionist. I'm like, God damn it. But I don't have time to tear down the guitar and completely buff it and rebuild it and get it shipped. I have a very short window. So I just close the case, I ship it to him, and I call my friend Ken. I'm like, dude, I just sent the guitar. There were these, I noticed these buffing scratches. And he's like, Chris, come on. Like, it's this ice blue metallic, the silver undercoat. It really shows those scratches. And I can't believe it. And they were nothing, right? But I was having a bit of a thing. And he's like, dude, it doesn't matter what color it is. It doesn't matter if there's scratches. You could burn through the finish. He doesn't care. He's a player. Does it feel good? Does it sound good? Does it play well? Is the weight good? How's it hang on his body? That's what he cares about. Don't worry about it. I'm okay. So rehearsals, I know when they are. They happen. I don't hear anything. And I don't ask. Nobody needs me when they're, it's like, oh, hold on, Mick. Hold on. What's this guy I used to work with? I'll get back with you. There's none of that. So I just, fingers crossed. And internet is not, this was probably 2016, 2017. I don't quite remember. But it's amazing how different things are now. Now you can follow the group pretty much in real time. There's 10,000 people with incredible cameras on their phones filming the whole thing, the whole set list. You find it, you see everything. For the first week, I just looked and looked and looked, and I could never find anything, a picture of my guitar. And I didn't hear anything. And, another week goes by and nothing. I'm getting discouraged. And I look on my phone one day and I see there's a voicemail from 8 or 9 days earlier from Ken. Hey man, this is Ken. Give me a call. I just wanted to fill you in on your guitar. And it wasn't like an uplifting message. So I was able to track him down, and he's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" "I'm good. How's your family?" Dude, just cut to the chase. He's like, "Okay, you're right." And he says, "So we're in rehearsals, and the few days have gone, guys are settling in. There's still a lot of songs that they need to work up and determine what they're playing on, what guitar they're going to use or whatever. I find this day on the calendar that's just like clean, no distractions. They're just in there rehearsing. And I go in early and I set up your guitar in a prominent place for him to discover it. And Stones come in, they start rehearsing, not seeing it. They take a break, coffee, whatever, chat. Now, I don't know how big this room is. Probably a pretty big room, soundstage, whatever, but he's not seeing it. Start rehearsing again. Eventually, they take another break, and Ken decides he's going to give me a little help. And so he's talking with Ronnie, and he walks Ronnie over. He just kind of walks him that direction in the conversation, and they get to where the guitar is. And he's like, "Oh, hey, did you see this guitar that just came in?" And he says, Ronnie looks over his shoulder and just says, "I don't like the color." And so he's like, "Well, the thing about this guitar that you might be interested in is these pickups." And he said he couldn't even finish the sentence. And the door flew open, and here comes famed French guitar builder James Tressart with a cartload, like 7 guitars. And he's friends with everybody. All the rock stars play his stuff, right? He's like, "James," and just completely sucks the air out of the room. And I'm like, "So that was it?" He's like, "I'm not saying that it can't happen, but it's not going to be with this guitar." Okay. After the punchline, then I go on to another part of it, which is I brought a different guitar. And when they played here in Kansas City, I did get to go. I did get, to go up, sound check. I got to be on stage, see all the gear. I got to be, rekindled my hellos with Pierre, and it was super cool. And, here come the Stones up on stage to start sound check. And here's Keith walking 8 feet towards me. I'm standing next to one of the 3 amigos from the Texas guitar shows. I don't know if you're into the vintage guitar shows or whatever. I forget that dude's name. But it's like, "Oh, here comes Keith." Hey, and I'm not at this point yet, but it's like, holy shit, I'm going to meet Keith Richards. And all of a sudden, security, "Everybody off stage. Nobody talks to the Stones." Oh, whatever. I got to see the sound check. That was cool. I got to bring my brother along, so he got to see that I actually, do something kind of cool. Hence the next effort when they came through Kansas City and dropping off a guitar with them. And he actually did the very final night of that North American zip code tour. He played that in, I think, Toronto, maybe, or somewhere in Canada, some big festival in front of 90,000 people. So that was pretty awesome. And I found it on YouTube. And I gave him a couple of weeks to settle down after the leg of the tour. And I called him and I'm like, "So I can tell people, right? I can share this video. There's a video of it on YouTube." It's like, "Oh no, you can't tell anyone." Like, "I can't tell anyone?" Like, "Well, not yet." It was the last night of the tour. He was on a plane heading back to London while I was still probably winding cables. You're going to have to wait. And so I waited. Anyway, it all worked out.
Was this guitar that he played the last night of the tour the original one or the replacement?
That was the replacement. And that wasn't the one that he ended up with in the end. There was, a few months in between there before they were going to pick up and do it the South American leg. And I'd heard dates announced. So I went, I called Ken. "Hey man, is that guitar going to make it to these next rehearsals?" And he's like, "I don't know. Did I not tell you where that guitar is?" I'm like, "No." like, well, it stayed in the States. And so Pierre took it to his studio, like Connecticut or something like that. And he had it there for a while. And he's really into the guitar. He's like totally behind it now. And then Keith found it, and Keith took it to his studio. And that's where it is right now. Keith's been plucking around on it. I'm like, oh, that could be a really good thing, or that could be a really bad thing. Because I've also heard stories about Keith where it's like, hey, look at this guitar I got. I'll have that. Boom, goes in a warehouse somewhere. So I built another one. I'm like, look, I'm building another one, and I'm going to send it. If both show up, great. Maybe both will play them. But and he's like, well, why don't you send the new pickup, the pickups that are appropriate for this model, and he'll be able to have a flavor or whatever. And bottom line, that rehearsal never even touched either one. And the tech just made a judgment call and said, well, he hasn't played this white one yet. We'll just bring this along. We don't have room for both. We'll leave the gold one here. And eventually that made it. And then he bought it. And then he played the hell out of it. It was really cool because you kind of get, your guitar gets assigned a song pretty much. And that one's brought out, it's in tune, you play that song, everything's dialed up, all the pedals, those guys don't have to do anything but play. And it was Street Fighting Man was the song. And by the next tour, that became the opening song. So, the AP Press guys, all those, they're only allowed to shoot like the first 3 songs. Because, everybody's fresh, right? They're not sweaty, their hair is right. And so there's, it's like, I could not have asked for a bigger, like, it doesn't mean that anybody's going to buy the guitar because of Ronnie. I think of Ronnie Wood, the last guitar I think of that as my guitar. If I was like, a guitar guy, I was like, I want a guitar like Ronnie Wood. I'm going to buy a Zimitis or, 54 Strat. Would be nice.
Yeah.
But still, it's pretty cool.